Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Total Tutor Show. I'm the host of the show, Neil Haley. You got to go to my website, TotalTutor.net, for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, and I want to welcome the program my co-host, Jared. And, Jared, I'm so excited always when we have celebrities, and this guy has an unbelievable story. So, Jared, thanks again for calling and being my co-host for today.
Oh, no problem, and I'm glad to be a part of the show. And, boy, when you talk about a resume, Kevin is right up there with having the total package of a resume.
A story, an unbelievable story. So I want to welcome the program, former NFL player and play-by-play announcer for the Philadelphia Eagles, Kevin Reilly. Kevin, thanks for calling.
Hey, it's a pleasure being on with you guys, and always good to talk to a guy who's rooting for the second-best team in Pennsylvania.
Yes, just right one weekend. And Trey Thomas I had on my show, Kevin, a couple months ago, and that's awesome, especially with him having the opportunity to be an assistant and stuff. So, all right, let's jump right into specifically, Kevin, your background, kind of the story, because kind of we're painting a picture in certain aspects, a little bit of background of your NFL career, and then specifically when things really changed.
You know, I was very fortunate during my college days at Villanova not to be injured, and two guys were drafted, one in the first round, a guy by the name of Mike Ciani, and a guy in the second round, John Babinez. Ciani got drafted by Oakland, and Babinez got drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, and I was a junior, and this was before they had the combine. So scouts were the only thing that they had to gear people with. And because of those two guys getting drafted and getting a lot of attention, I started to get some attention and was fortunate enough to be a seventh-round draft pick the following year of the Miami Dolphins, who, by the way, were coming off the 1972 undefeated season. And it was a little intimidating, guys, to be in a locker room at 22 years of age with guys that you have been reading about in Sports Illustrated since your junior year in college. And there were only, or junior year actually in high school, and there were only 2 slots available on that Miami team, and we had 28 rookies that were vying for the opportunity.
Kevin, that's what I was just going to say. You talk about intimidating. You're dealing with you're going to a team with a perfect record, which means there's some talent there. So let me ask you, how did you approach that? What was your technique?
Well, it's really interesting. And on top of them having some talent, Don Shula was a little bit like on the side of believing in a little bit of luck and also the camaraderie of that team. He did not want to fix what wasn't broken. And as a result of that, they did win back-to-back Super Bowls. But getting back to your question, there were 28 guys in the team. We're in the Miami heat for 2.5 hours in the morning, 2.5 hours in the afternoon. And, guys, that was the last year they didn't allow water on the practice field. So you can imagine, the pain and suffering that went on during those two-a-days. And who wanted to stick around when the odds were against you like that? Almost every night for 2 weeks, we would have 1, 2, sometimes 3 guys leave in the middle of the night that had just had enough and weren't going to be cannon fodder. And they called us mullets. Mullets are what dolphins eat in the sea. And I just made up my mind, and I guess it was my background, that I was going to be sent home. I'm a big believer in consistent persistence. And I said, if I don't make this team, they're going to send me home. I'm not leaving on my own. And a week before the first game, it came down to me and Don Strock being on the team. And everybody was patting me on the back, saying, hey, I think you got the team made. And the following day, Don Shula called me into his office and said, I got good news for you and bad news. The bad news is we've decided that we need a defensive end, and we've made a 3-way trade with Philadelphia and the Jets. And the good news is you're going to go to Philadelphia. Well, that was the good news, except they won back-to-back Super Bowls, and I'd like to have been there. But had I not stuck it out, I probably would not have had the value to the Eagles of making it down to the last cut with the world champions. And when I got to Philadelphia, I distinguished myself on special teams. There was a guy by the name of Bill Berkey. I don't know if you guys ever heard of him, but he was
we know him. Yes.
Yeah, he was playing in front of me, and I didn't have a chance of beating him out. So I decided to really focus on special teams, and I became the captain. And then a dream came true.
The hard work paid off, not giving up, especially being on a team, Kevin, that, again, is a team that you didn't have a great chance of making. And then you get your opportunity with the Philadelphia Eagles, and you see that your role is a role that a lot of people don't like playing in special teams, but you took that role on and said, I'm going to persevere through this and be successful at it, right?
Well, it was my boyhood dream. You know, back in the day before there were 300 channels on TV, you know, all we had to do was go out in the backyard in the early 60s and mid-60s and pretend. And pretend was another way of dreaming. And I'd be lying to both of you. I didn't say that I, wasn't dreaming of someday wearing a Phillies uniform or an Eagles uniform. And so I'll fast forward. You were playing Monday Night Football, first time in 5 years that the Eagles have been on. We're playing our arch rivals, the Dallas Cowboys, who have beaten us 9 straight times. And we got a shot to win this ball game. And everybody's excited. And about 1 hour before the game, Jared, a name that will come to you real quick, a guy by the name of Dick LeBeau in his first year of coaching, he was my special teams coach. He said, Reilly, get the kickoff team and get in our meeting room. Well, that never happened, and I had no idea what this was about. And we get in there, and Dick tells us that we are going to be introduced before the game because they wanted to get the fans in Philadelphia. They wanted to get the 12th man into the game. And as you know, the Philadelphia fans, a lot of blue-collar people go to those games, and they take their football very seriously. So imagine, I'm the last guy in line. I'm looking down this tunnel, and I got to pinch myself. I can hardly believe it. I'm getting ready to be introduced in front of 70,000 screaming people who have been drinking since noon, by the way. and there's about 10, 12 million people watching on TV. And so about the first 4 or 5 guys that got introduced, the crowd got it, and it got so loud I couldn't hear the guy in front of me. And the hair on the back of my head was standing up. And then our public announcer, who was a friend of mine, gave me a little more mustard on the introduction when he said, and now from Wilmington, Delaware, and Villanova University, captain of the special teams, our own Kevin Reilly. Well, guys, I don't even remember my feet hitting the AstroTurf. And when I hit the huddle with 10 guys, who, by the way, were setting personal high jump records, it was just unbelievable. This was what Andy Warhol would call your 15 minutes of fame. I'm 235 pounds. I got a 4.740. I bench press 400 pounds, and I'm playing in front of the home team. It doesn't get any better than this. We won that game on a last-second field goal by Tom Dempsey. It was just the things that great stories are made of. But then, just when things were going so right, 5 years later, I wake up in Sloan Kettering Hospital in New York City, minus a left arm, a left shoulder, and 4 ribs due to a tumor that I got from playing special teams in the NFL.
Wow. Isn't that
Tell us a little bit more of that. What was the diagnosis? What was the how did you talked about your consistent persistence. We use the term on this show so much with our guests, and that's perseverance, I think, which is very similar to what you described. I'd like you to tell us, you get that diagnosis, what do you do? How do you handle it?
Well, the reason I told you the first story about my 15 minutes of fame, I just didn't fall from average Joe to this position. Mm-hmm. I felt a very proud professional athlete who, really took care of his body. And all of a sudden, I look and I'm missing most of the left side of my body. And then I had the doctor come in 1 hour after I was out of intensive care and in my own room, and he said, I think I got it all. Now, I had 11 hours I was under the knife, and this is before MRIs and lasers. So I lost a lot of blood, and I was under a long time. As a matter of fact, they told me they gave me 20 units of blood during the operation. And a funny thing happened, guys. When I got out, I could speak Spanish. I like black-eyed peas, and I also like gin. I don't know what that meant, but that was one of the good things that happened to me. But anyway, I wake up in this, after that little message from the doctor, what, you didn't get it all? You don't know? And that's when it really got disturbing to me. I called in the head nurse and I said, hey, listen, I don't want any visitors today. And I don't want any phone calls. And an hour, I was going to have a major pity party. And an hour into my pity party, a guy appears at the doorway with credentials. And as he walks towards me, I can see that he's missing his left arm. His name was Frank. He was 64 years old. He had lost his arm in World War II, and he was there to counsel me on all the things that I, would need to know about being handicapped and an amputee. And those two words hit me in the middle of the forehead like a isolation block from a 230-pound fullback. I wasn't ready for them. I wasn't ready for Frank. And to tell you the truth, I'll go through a long story. He told me things that I would never be able to tie my tie again, and I can do that today. And he told me I'd have to get Velcro flap shoes if I wanted to wear tie shoes and get them prepared, pre-tied. And when he left there, I know he was trying to help me, but he really depressed me.
Oh, my.
Okay. Here I went into this depression, and the nurse appears again and says, I have a telephone call for you. And I go, listen, I can't talk to anybody. That guy that just came in here that snuck in, he just depressed the hell out of me. And they said, no, I think you'd want to talk to this guy. Well, Jared, you're going to love who this guy is. We had known each other a little bit, and through the Dick LeBeau connection, it was none other than the great Rocky Breyer.
Oh, Rocky's been on my show too, Kevin, so that's interesting. That's cool.
Rocky and I, we knew each other. I can't say we were great friends, but here was an NFL, alumni in trouble, and he called me, and I took the call because if you know Rocky's story, this was a guy that I knew could at least associate with my pain and my despair. And we had a great talk. And after that talk, Rocky said to me, by the way, have any of the doctors or the nurses been in to tell you about your limitations? And I said, no, but there was this well-meaning volunteer that came in and depressed me. And Rocky listened with the intent of a school child. And then when I got done, he said with a voice and a passion I'll never be able to duplicate for you guys, but he said, you must promise me something. You must promise me that you won't quit on anything until you try it 3 times. And I said, well, Rock, I said, this guy that was in here has been missing his arm for almost 30 years. He's got to be a little more of an expert in that area than you or I. And that's when Rocky said, let me tell you something about experts. Experts built the Titanic and amateurs built the Ark. Experts can be wrong.
And so, the direction of this story, again, it's such a sharp connection to this show, and we talk so much about avoiding limits, avoiding labels. So our advice to our parents is, if you're looking at a challenging circumstance with your family, your child, let's not look at the limitations that appear to be there. Let's look at what the opportunities that lie ahead of us.
Well, without a doubt, and I promised Rocky I would try everything 3 times, and he sent me this little poem that I've memorized, and I say it instead of counting to 10. And there are 3 things I found out after 34 years I can't do. I can't play the guitar, I can't jump rope, and I can't give the left-hand signal to angry motorists on I-95 when I'm angry. But other than that, I was told I wouldn't be able to jog again. Don't do that, you'll have disc problems. I was told to stay away from the golf course because, with one arm, if I hit behind the ball, I might break my wrist. And because of Rocky, I decided that I was just going to not listen to anybody setting the bar low for me. And I've run in 5 half marathons, a full marathon, and I've broke 90 in golf twice, something I never did with one arm. It's amazing what happens when you slow the game down. And I don't say to anybody, look at what I've accomplished. I say that the human spirit is tougher than anything that can happen to it.
That's so true.
And I'll say that again. The human spirit is tougher than anything that can happen to it. I have counseled hundreds of people since my operation, and I can tell you that people call upon it, unfortunately, only most of the time when they're in a crisis situation. They find that they can go deeper and further than they ever imagined. And I sometimes wonder when I give my speeches, why do we wait until there's a crisis?
Right.
There's a guy in the NFL, he's not in anymore, but a guy that had no right from a standpoint of athleticism, or maybe not athleticism, but from a standpoint of mechanics, to be an NFL quarterback, and that's Tim Tebow. But he discovered the human spirit, and he believed in himself being a winner, that he could get the job done, and somehow he convinced 43 guys on the team with him.
Yeah.
So the human spirit's in every one of us. The problem I find with people going through crisis, when I go down to Walter Reed, it's the loved ones, the friends, and the associates that set the bar low for everybody. Mm-hmm. And it's because of empathy. It's not a meanness. It's not an unchristian thing. They feel self-sorry. They feel empathy. And one of the greatest things that I get is going down to Walter Reed on occasion. These guys got a great attitude, guys and gals, and they're always looking to put it forward and to test the limits of what they can do.
Well, fantastic.
So, that's my story in a nutshell. And not that I'm still not faced with challenges. 4 years ago, and I won't mention the name, a national broadcaster who's listened to me and on radio, thinks I do a great job, said, it's a shame. I said, what's a shame? You'll never do an NFL game because you deserve to do that shot. And I said, why wouldn't that happen on TV? And he said, well, because the focus would be on your amputated arm, that empty sleeve. They'll never put you on camera. Well, that just gave me the juice to pursue it. And 3 years ago, along with Herm Edwards and Hugh Douglas, I did all 4 preseason games for the Philadelphia Eagles. And so I feel very, confident and proud that I was able to break that ceiling, not only for myself, but for other people that have disabilities.
Well, Kevin, when we get back, we're going to talk more about specifically your story, because it wasn't just after going through being an amputee. You had some ups and downs in your life again to persevere to get to where you are today with the Eagles. So it wasn't just like, hey, a perfect life. There were lots of bumps in the road. You're listening to Total Tutor Show, powered by the Beach Lifestyle Celebrity Segment with Jarrett and Kevin Reilly, former NFL player and Philadelphia Eagles broadcaster. And we'll be back in just a moment. We're back to the Total Tutor Show, powered by the Beach Lifestyle Celebrity Segment. TotalTutor.net for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor. Neil S. Haley, Facebook. I'm with my co-host, Jarrett, and I'm talking to Kevin Reilly. And, Kevin, you're very inspiring. And the reason I see this is because, specifically enough, someone like Rocky Blyer called you out and said, you know what, you can do more. And I think you lived that throughout your life in all different circumstances, to life after football, to life in the career world. So tell us specifically, once you got out of the hospital, how did you turn your life around to be able to be a very successful person in life?
Well, as you said, there was ups and downs. I came out of the hospital, and there was a headline in one of the Philadelphia papers. One of the sports writers had caught me on a morphine high, and I sounded great, and I told her that, tell everybody back in Philly I'll be back. And she put it on the headlines of this thing called the Philadelphia Daily News. And, right out of the box, I thought I had to go out and be Superman and prove to everybody I could do everything. And so I went back to work in January. The operation was only, 2 months old. And by about March, I had hit a wall mentally and physically. And it was really, really tough because I didn't want to admit that. Here I was, this NFL, you don't admit failure, you don't admit the fact that you're down. And I went through some really trying times, and I developed some depression over that. And eventually I came out of that situation, but I also tell people don't rush back and set realistic expectations, and my expectations weren't realistic at the time. So then I started to set some realistic expectations, and fortunate for me, nobody really handicapped me with coming back to work. They gave me my job back as a sales manager. They gave me an adult budget to go with it, I might add. But, everywhere that I went, people were giving me the opportunity to be me. And that's all I wanted to do was be me. And, I raised 3 kids, and they're all happily married right now. And I got 10 grandkids, and it's gone from there. But as I look back, there were peaks and valleys. And what I tell people when I speak is, so for some of you out there in the crowd, things are going well in your life. Your job's going well, your health's good, everything's. Enjoy it because it won't last long. And then I raised my voice to almost yell. And for some of you who haven't heard me until I raised my voice, who are going through some problems and crisis in your life, hang in there because they won't last long either. And I think if you buy into that scenario, you're going to come out of your challenge. There's going to be good times, but being a realist, you may have to go back to some more challenges. And, I'm 62 years old, and I'm not naive enough to think that there's not more challenges in my life. But right now, things are very good.
Right, and realistically, that's just the approach that we know happens. Life does not go necessarily the way we think it should be scripted. And, there's adversity in everyone's life, maybe not to the degree of some people, but we know it's there. And, we talk a lot on this show is the quality of that person is not how they handle themselves during the good times, but how they handle themselves when adversity is right in front of them.
Absolutely. And, I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic, and I have a great faith in God. And I believe that when you pray to whoever God you pray to, that he's got 3 answers, not 2. Yes, no, and not right now. So you've got to believe that and keep doing, the things that you can control, and the things you can't control, put them in the hands of God. I say that God will help you move mountains, but make sure you bring your own wheelbarrow.
Oh, that definitely, Kevin, and that's where I go about my life. Again, I'm a devout Catholic, and I see specifically when I didn't have God, when I dealt with things in my life as a professional wrestler and was living in, a horrible life in a lot of ways as a professional athlete, I tell myself all the time, if I would have had God from the beginning, where would I be now? Because ultimately, I'm dealing with lots of difficulties, but I had the perseverance to move forward. And I guess that's what you try to teach to lots of people, don't you, Kevin?
Yeah, you do. And, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, the day of my operation, it was 5:30 in the morning on a very chilly, rainy October day, and it was still dark outside. And I was shaking from fear and being cold. I knew it was going to be a long day, and the priest came in and gave me, communion. And that settled me down a little bit. And then they gave me a tranquilizer shot to ease my nerves. And I was feeling no pain as I laid there on a gurney in pre-op with about 7 or 8 other patients. And we were talking casually, and I wasn't feeling any pain. And the Catholic priest is approaching, coming down the hallway. And I thought he was going to administer to another one of the patients on a gurney. And he walked up to me and he said, "Are you ready?" And I said, "For what?" And he said, "The sacrament of the sick." Well, Neil, you and I know as old altar boys, that was known as the last rite.
Yes.
Right.
And he saw the, bewildered look on my face, and he said, "Well, Dr. Marco, my doctor, he has been here, hasn't he?" Well, the good doc was late again and was coming up the rear right behind the priest, and he had a little sheet of paper for me, and it had about 5 or 6 sentences on it, and I only remember one. I had to sign a piece of paper, and it said, "You as the adult in this operation understand that there is a 33% that you will not survive the procedure." And Johnny Carson would say, "Guys, I did not know that." And I can tell you that the next 30 minutes were not about my NFL experience, the great family that I have, my house in the suburbs. It wasn't about any of that. It was about what was my relationship with my Creator, because there was a good chance in the next hour or two, there was a 30% chance I'd be meeting him. And so I wish that on no one, that you come to a life crisis. But believe me, if you do, the fog clears very quickly to tell you what's really important in life. And so I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I made some promises on that gurney. And I said, if you pull me through this, I'll even do the 2:30 p.m. interview with Neil Haley someday.
Well, then you know what? You have suffered enough. I will tell you that right now.
Oh, man.
You got to believe sometimes that God's got better plans for us than we do. And what seems to be a disappointment is really, in the long run, something that turns out well for you. Who knows how my life would have turned out if this didn't happen to me?
Kevin, I want to jump in here. One of the reasons, this is Jarrett, one of the reasons that I so much want to be a part of the celebrity interviews, particularly when we have this kind of story, is my son my 7-year-old adopted son has a disorder, and our audience has heard me talk about this, called NF2, neurofibromatosis type 2. And it's reminiscent of cancer. The tumors are in the brain and the spine, and they are almost always non-malignant. They're benign, but they create tremendous damage to the nerves. And you talked about your surgery and how that left you. Right now, if you saw my son, he would look totally healthy. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have significant challenges in front of him. But the approach that we take is similar. My wife and I take a similar to what you have described. He's only 7, but we try to we don't limit him in any way. He has done amazing things such as skiing, snowboarding, surfing, zip lining, indoor skydiving, because we want him to persevere when his life does get hard, get tough. And when I hear the story that you've described, the way you persevered, your consistent persistence, what's the future going to look like for you?
Well, I worry really about one day, 1 week, 1 month at a time, and right now, I'm healthy and I try to stay healthy. I just came in before I talked to you guys. I got 3.5 miles in. I'm, as the doctor said 12 years later, the tumor I have is not going to kill me. Something else will, and something's going to take all of us. So I'm trying to stay healthy right now for these 10 grandkids that I have, and this what I feel is this. I don't want to. This crusade is to get out and talk to people about the human spirit. I just want to tell people, wake up. It's in there. God gave it to every single one of us. And just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and start to think positive and get out there. There's always somebody who's feeling worse today than you are, no matter how low you are.
Truly.
And, you talk about your son. You're doing all the right things. He's living life. He's not sitting around, and you're not sitting around bemoaning the situation. And he may be happier than some well-adjusted kids that are living in, without any injuries or diseases whatsoever. Exactly. They're not happy. So it's all relative that way. And I commend you for doing that. That's all I wanted to be treated was as normal. Don't set the bar low for me. Let me set it myself. And I try to tell people, it's amazing. I go into amputees, and already family members have said, well, we're going to get that ramp built for you outside, and so we can wheel you up. They're thinking in the right terms, but who wants a ramp out there putting a label on that there's somebody in here that's going to be in a wheelchair and may not get the prosthetics that they need? And then the next thing you know, I see this person that you're talking to talking about doing that, and a year later, he's in a 5K run with me with 2 prosthetics, right from Walter Reed doing his first 5K. And that's because he took the high road. He took he raised the bar. So, that's my message to people. We all have the ability to challenge ourselves. And then, the people around us, let them feed us. Let them give us the gas to go onward.
What we're really excited about, Jared, is he's part of one of the insightful players. And we're going to be interviewing a series of them, Jared, and they're all awesome people. Kevin, how did you get involved in that, just to give our audience a little background quickly on that? And your friendship.
I got to give
Go ahead.
Yeah, Chrissy Carew somehow came across my story and called me one day and asked me if she could write it up. And I thought about it for a while, and I got back to her. I said, sure, why not? And you could. 30 years of sales have really conditioned me to read people pretty quickly, and I read her as being a really compassionate, a person who was really trying to do the right thing and highlight some of the positive things that happen in sports, because we know pick up the newspaper or go online every day and find, something bad in sports, and the media seems to really dig into those stories. And, I gave her my story, and we shopped it around a little bit, and she's had me on a couple, radio shows, and her and I did a joint speaking engagement together at a school up in the Harrisburg area earlier this spring that was just incredible. We did it with the kids, and she's just a tremendous story in herself because she believes in, highlighting the positive rather than the negative, and that's how I got in touch with her.
And, Kevin, the funny thing is I know we're going to be working with them, and I'm so excited. And it was just based on going on LinkedIn. It was out in Harrow, and we never connected, and I liked it on LinkedIn, and before you know it, we're on the phone, and you're on my show. But I thank you for persevering to come on my show at 2:30. So where can we find information on you, Kevin, learn more about what you do and all the different things and how you can help others?
Well, if you go onto my website, it's www.kreilly, R-E-I-L-L-Y, www.kreilly.com. All the information you need, and I got a couple little videos on there. I speak all over the country. I'll be going to Montana in March and California in April. And I just love doing this because I think I can really help some people. What Rocky Blyer did for me, I want to do for other people. He was he was that safety net that kept me from falling all the way down into despair. And if I can do that for, 3 or 4 people every place I speak, then I feel good about it. So they can reach me on there, and I'm also on Twitter. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's K Reilly, and just go in there and check it out. And I'll be mostly reporting on the Eagles the next couple months, but everything's good, guys.
Well, Kevin, I'll be tweeting you out as well, some stuff, all the stations that were syndicated on when the radio interview airs, so that your followers can keep up with it. And Jarrett, I know you have one more question.
I do, and this one's for Kevin. How's the broadcast team keeping up with this incredibly rapid pace of that offense now?
It was really funny because the icon of the Philadelphia broadcasters is a guy named Merrill Reese. He's been doing this almost 30 years now, might be 30. And he was as excited as a kid at Christmas doing the first quarter where they ran 30 plays. It was watching him and hearing him try to describe the action. And Mike Quick, his counterpart, who played a little bit after me, great wide receiver for the Eagles. He's the analyst. The two of them were like kids at Christmas. But, on our post-game show, Jared, we got calls from Florida, Georgia, Alaska. It was like the Eagle Nation had been woken up after years of being asleep. So We'll see if this can continue. But it's an exciting brand of football that Chip Kelly has brought. And I said in the very beginning when everybody asked me about this guy and I'd met him and talked to him, I said, he is either going to set the NFL on its ear or he's the best snake oil salesman I've ever met.
And it's so funny, Kevin. I had Randall Cunningham on my show as well, and that's when I loved the Eagles with Mike Quick and Randall Cunningham and all that stuff. So Randall was a fantastic guy as well on my show. But thanks for calling, Kevin. Keep up to date. We'll definitely have you back on again. We'll stay in touch. And I hope the Steelers have a better record than the Eagles. Sorry about saying that, Kevin. But go Steelers.
Right, anytime, guys. I really enjoyed it.
All right, take care now. All right, see ya. Okay, bye. You're listening to Total Tutor Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.